spending months engraving a single design on the dollar, using machines that print 10,000 sheets of money per hour, and scanning over 100,000 bills every hour just to catch the tiniest mistakes. Sounds intense, right? That's just a glimpse into how the US government prints money. A little history. Before 1862, there was no single US currency. People paid for goods with gold coins, silver dollars, or even banknotes issued by local banks. Each state or bank printed its own money, leading to widespread counterfeiting and confusion in transactions. Then came the Civil War, and the US government needed a way to fund it. That's when the Treasury Department introduced the first official paper money, called greenbacks, because of their green ink. These bills were different from what we use today. They didn't have fancy security features, and their value was shaky at first. But they were a big step toward a national currency. In 1862, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, BEP, was created to handle the production of US paper money. At first, it was just a small group of workers signing and trimming banknotes by hand. But as the country grew, so did the demand for money. The BEP eventually expanded into a high-tech operation, printing billions of dollars every year from 2 locations, Washington, D.C. and Fort Worth, Texas. The dollar bills of the 1800s looked nothing like the ones in our wallet today. They were bigger, had different designs, and didn't have the same security features we see now. Over time, money had to evolve to stay ahead of counterfeiters. Now let's look at the materials involved in printing these dollar bills. Materials used in printing money. Several people say paper money all the time, right? Well, fun fact, US money isn't actually made of paper. If anyone ever tried to print a dollar bill using regular printer paper, it would feel completely different and fall apart pretty quickly. Real US bills are made from a super tough material that's 75% cotton and 25% linen. That's why dollar bills feel different from the pages of a book or a school notebook. This special blend makes the money strong enough to last for years, even if it gets wet, crumpled, or shoved into your pocket 100 times. And here's something cool. Only one company in the entire world is allowed to make this money paper. It's called Crane Currency, and they've been supplying the US with this special material for over 150 years. The government keeps a close eye on it because, well, we wouldn't want just anyone making money paper at home. Now let's talk about ink. It is common knowledge that the back of every US bill is green. That's been a thing since the 1800s, which is why people sometimes call dollars greenbacks. But there's a lot more to the ink on money than just green. The front of the bill is printed in black ink for most of the designs, while the big number in the lower right-hand corner, on $10 bills and higher, is printed with color-shifting ink. It changes from copper to green when you tilt it. Some bills also have metallic ink to make them even harder to fake. And the best part, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, BEP, mixes its own ink. They test it constantly to make sure it's just right before printing each batch of money. After learning the materials, let's now move to the processes involved in printing this money. The money printing process. Ever wondered how dollar bills are made? It's not as simple as pressing print on a computer. Making US money is a long and super detailed process with multiple steps. The government takes it very seriously because, well, money is kind of important. The first step is designing the currency. Before any money is printed, it has to be designed, and not just by anyone. Artists and engravers spend years perfecting their skills before they're trusted with this job. At first, they sketch out ideas by hand, drawing everything from the portraits, like George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, to the tiny details seen in the background of a bill. Once they're happy with the design, they use a mix of digital tools and old-school engraving techniques to bring the money to life. Engraving is carving the design onto metal plates one tiny line at a time, kind of like a detailed stamp. It's a slow and delicate process. Some engravings take weeks or even months to finish. But this level of detail is important because it makes US money harder to copy. Once the final design is approved, it's time to start printing. The next step is what is called offset printing. Here the real action begins. The first printing step is called offset printing, and it's where bills get their background colors. These aren't just any printers. They are massive machines that are more than 50 feet long and weigh 70 tons. They work super fast, printing up to 10,000 sheets of money per hour. The front and back of the bill get printed at the same time using special magnetic ink. The colors on the bill blend smoothly, making it even harder for counterfeiters to copy. $1 and $2 bills skip this step, they go straight to the next stage. Once the background is printed, the sheets need to dry before moving to the next step. This drying process takes at least 72 hours. After the offset printing, there's the intaglio printing, plate printing. Now this is where the real magic happens. The intaglio printing process is what gives dollar bills their slightly raised texture. You know, that rough feel when you run your fingers over a bill. Special engraved metal plates are covered in thick ink. The extra ink is wiped away, leaving ink only in the deep grooves of the engraving, and a sheet of money paper is pressed against the plate under tons of pressure, transferring the ink onto the bill. This method adds all the important details like the portrait of the person on the bill, the big numbers showing the bill's value, and all the small, intricate designs. The reason this process is so important is that fake printers can't copy it. The ink sits on top of the bill in a way that can't be duplicated with normal printing. But this ink isn't like regular ink. It takes 3 whole days to dry completely. The next step is the letterpress printing. Okay, now we're getting close to the final stages. This step is all about adding the last important details to the bill. The letterpress printing process is responsible for adding the serial numbers, the unique numbers on every bill, the Federal Reserve seal, that round stamp-like mark, and the Treasury seal, another stamp with a key symbol. The serial numbers are printed in green or black ink depending on the bill's value. Once the letterpress printing is done, every bill finally looks like real money, but it's not ready to be used just yet. After the printing is the inspection and quality control. Now comes the final step, making sure every single bill is perfect. The government doesn't want any messed up money getting out into the world, so they use high-tech machines to check each bill for mistakes. They use the Offline Currency Inspection System, OCIS. This is a super powerful camera system that scans 2.5 sheets of money per second. That's over 100,000 bills per hour. It checks for misaligned prints, smudged ink, crooked serial numbers, and any other printing errors. If the machine finds a mistake, that bill is immediately removed and recycled. The rest of the good bills move to the next check. Even after the first check, some mistakes might still slip through. That's why there's a second round of inspections where each bill is checked one by one. If a bill passes all these tests, it finally becomes real money. If not, it's shredded and never gets used. Alright, so we've gone through how money is designed, printed, and checked for mistakes. But how does it get into people's hands? How money enters circulation. People don't pick up fresh bills straight from the printing machines, right? That's because before a single dollar bill can be spent, it has to go through one last journey. A journey that takes it from the printing facility to the Federal Reserve, then to banks, and finally to you. At this point, the money is printed, inspected, and looks perfect. But there's one problem. It's still in huge uncut sheets. Each sheet has either 32 or 50 bills on it, depending on the denomination. So now it's time to cut them up into individual bills. This job is done by giant cutting machines called guillotines. And no, not the kind used in old movies. These are ultra-precise machines that slice both vertically and horizontally to make sure every bill is exactly the right size. Each bill has to be 6.14 inches long and 2.61 inches wide. If a bill isn't cut perfectly, it's thrown out. The government doesn't play around when it comes to making sure every dollar is flawless. Once the bills are cut, they get stacked into bricks of 100 bills each. Ever seen those bundles of money in movies with paper straps around them? That's exactly how they look at this stage. But they don't stop at just 100 bills. Here's how they group them. A brick equals 1,000 bills, 10 stacks of 100. A bundle equals 4,000 bills, 4 bricks together. A skid equals 64,000 bills, 16 bundles in a big metal container. Now these stacks of money are finally ready to leave the printing facility, but they're not going straight to the local bank just yet. You might think that once the money is printed, it belongs to the US government. But technically, that's not true. The Federal Reserve, or the Fed, is the organization that actually controls how much money goes into the economy. After getting packed, the freshly printed bills are loaded onto armored trucks and taken to Federal Reserve banks across the country. These banks are heavily guarded and have massive vaults to store the money. Once the new money arrives, the Fed doesn't just dump it into circulation immediately. Instead, they hold onto it until banks need it. Some of this money might stay locked away in the Fed's vaults for years before it's ever used. So how does money get from the Fed to the banks? It's pretty simple. Banks place orders. Let's say a big bank like Wells Fargo or Bank of America needs more cash for their ATMs and branches. They ask the Federal Reserve to send them fresh money. The Fed then takes stacks of money from their vaults, loads them onto armored trucks, and delivers them to the bank's cash vaults. And just like that, money is one step closer to people's hands. Okay, so the banks now have the money. To get to people's wallets, it can take the route of ATM or bank tellers. Once money enters the public, it keeps moving around, getting spent, deposited, and withdrawn again and again. However, not all money stays in circulation forever. The US government keeps a close watch on old bills and removes worn-out money from the system. $1 and $5 bills last about 4 to 5 years. $10 bills last about 5 to 6 years. $20 and $50 bills last about 7 to 8 years. $100 bills last 15 years or more, since people don't use them as often. Once a bill is too damaged, banks send it back to the Fed, where it's shredded and destroyed. In fact, billions of dollars are destroyed every year to make room for fresh money. While this may sound strange, it is true. It costs money to print money. Let's understand better. The cost of printing money. Printing money might seem like a magic trick. Just press a button and boom, more dollars appear. But in reality, making money costs money. Every bill has to be printed on special material, using fancy ink and high-tech security features. And all of that adds up. Not all dollar bills cost the same to make. The price depends on the size of the bill and the security features it has. $1 and $5 bills costs about 2.8 cents per bill. $10 bill costs about 3.2 cents per bill. $20 and $50 bills costs about 3.7 cents per bill. And $100 bill costs about 8.6 cents per bill because of its fancy security features. Surprisingly, printing a $100 bill costs almost 3 times more than printing a $1 bill. Why? Because higher value bills need extra security features like 3D ribbons and color-shifting ink to stop counterfeiters. For the most part, yes. The US has one of the most efficient money printing systems in the world. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing, BEP, prints billions of dollars every year while keeping costs fairly low. But there are some inefficiencies too. For example, old money wears out and has to be destroyed and replaced, and coins are more expensive to make than they're worth. It costs 1.76 cents to make a penny, which is more than a penny is even worth. Despite these challenges, the US keeps money production as cost-effective as possible, making sure that every bill is built to last. While it costs a lot to print money, there are people who feel they can print their own money, and this is known as counterfeiting. Let's look at the measures the US government has taken to avoid it. Counterfeiting and security measures. Imagine if anyone could just print their own money at home. Sounds cool, right? But if everyone did that, money wouldn't be worth anything. That's why the government has crazy good security features to make sure no one can make fake bills, also known as counterfeiting. Believe it or not, people have been trying to copy money for hundreds of years. But as counterfeiters get smarter, the government fights back by making money harder and harder to fake. The dollar bills have microprinting, tiny words hidden in the design, and it's almost impossible to copy with a regular printer. For example, on a $100 bill, on Ben Franklin's collar, there are the words "The United States of America," printed so small that anyone would need a magnifying glass to read them. Ever notice that shiny blue ribbon woven into a $100 bill? It's not just for decoration, it's one of the best anti-counterfeiting features out there. When tilted, the little hundreds and bells inside the ribbon move and change direction. This happens because of tiny, high-tech lenses built into the ribbon. No regular printer can copy this, making the $100 bill one of the hardest to fake. Also, on a $10 bill or higher, the big number in the bottom right corner changes color when you tilt it. It shifts from copper to green, which is something regular ink just can't do. This makes it super easy to check if a bill is real. Just tilt it and watch the magic happen. Interested in learning some information about crime in the United States? Check our video, The Richest Crime Families in America.